you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. And now here's your host, Rich Barris.
Well, now, doesn't that change everything we were about to talk about? Welcome to Inside the Numbers. I'm your host, Rich Barris, People's Pundit, who's maybe seriously considering moving to the 8 o'clock hour because now Tucker Carlson is out at Fox and nobody has to compete with him. Fox News is screwed. Okay, Tucker could go over to Spotify or go to Rumble. He could get a deal with Rumble. He'll make $100 million easy alone. I'm just waiting to see if the guy's going to do it at the 8 o'clock hour. Fox News is now completely faux news. All right, there is nothing there for you folks. No mo. I'm sorry to tell you, but it used to be that the American right had at least one cable news network that they could watch outside of what is just clearly left-wing garbage propaganda. We don't know that much. The statement came out, maybe 30 minutes ago. I'll tell you what, people are, this makes sense. Why? Because producers talk to producers, and there was some weirdness coming out of that today. So, look, the American right has nothing now but alternative media. Fox News, listen, the man who was holding Fox News together as a legitimate voice of the American right left during the Trump administration. Once upon a time, Hannity himself said, the minute he leaves, then this isn't the Fox News anymore. He's been gone for years. You might have noticed. With Roger Ailes gone, he was the only thing holding it together, okay? Now, does this have something to do with the Dominion lawsuit? I find it extremely hilarious that the left is allowed, without any kind of consequence, right? Without having to give back their cheesy little awards they give each other, the left is allowed to accuse a duly elected president of being a Russian spy, essentially a traitor who colluded with a foreign power to steal an election. That in turn causes a nutcase Bernie supporter to shoot the House whip and 4 others as the Republican Congressional Conference practices for a charity baseball game, and nothing happens. But Fox News talks about Dominion software and gets hit with a libel or, basically, yeah. I mean, I don't remember how much it is, but it was literally like, I think $800 million, something ridiculous. I don't want to quote a number because it was some outrageous number that the people of Dominion don't deserve. All right, because they already have enough money to last them for the rest of their lives. They didn't need that money from Fox as well. I don't know if this has something to do with it, but the other text messages that were highlighted were Laura Ingram's and Sean Hannity's. They're still there. So we'll just have to see. The statement does not say much. I'll read it to you right now, actually, if you want. It reads, Fox News Media and Tucker Carlson have agreed to part ways. We thank him for his service to the network as a host and prior to that as a contributor. Mr. Carlson's last program was Friday, April 21st. Fox News Tonight will air live at 8 p.m. starting this evening as an interim show helmed by rotating Fox News personalities until a new host is named. Well, you don't survive this. Fox's name already has been badly damaged. Back in the 2015 primary when Trump was announced in 2016, when they were, then hatching it out with like 19 candidates, there was something called the brand index done by YouGov. And you could see as they very clearly through Brett Baier, and at one point even Megyn Kelly, the word came down to take Trump out, raise your hand, do all this. The brand index cratered for Fox News, and they never really recovered. They had some happy years during the Trump administration. The light at the White House went on in the residence part of the White House at 4 a.m., 4:30. So, from Fox and Friends, the president would call in and, they had some time there until they decided to do, be Fox News, because the truth is they were always full of crap. Like Steve Doocy was never a Trumper. He's full of crap. Allison Camerata was a good actress, but now she is a hardcore lefty on CNN because that's who Allison Camerata always was. So they're totally fake. I had a friend who worked at Fox, very pretty woman, looked like she was going to be a rising star. The stories are horrendous. All right. If you want to move up in Fox News and you look like she looks, well, then you know what's expected of you. They're trash, dude. They pretend to be the Hallmark Channel of cable news. They're trash. They're filth. Disgusting. So without Tucker Carlson, I don't see a future for them. There's just too many other things to watch. There's a certain generation, a certain demographic that advertisers want to see. They have the old traditionalists, which I hate even using that term because they're not traditional Republicans, like the Mitt Romney, McCain wing of the Republican Party. If you are a viewer of this show, is not indicative of the span of the Republican Party, the characteristic of the Republican Party, never has been. It was from a brief period after those frauds rode Reagan's coattails. Most of them hated his guts. All the Fox News personalities, the big shots, the late Charles Krauthammer, George Will, right? All of these people, they hated Ronald Reagan. They could not stand Ronald Reagan. But they became, because Bush was elected, they became little infestations, like viruses in the Republican Party. And they just hung around pretending to be conservatives. Bill Kristol, his daddy is a communist. He was as far left as it gets. He just didn't have a home in the Democratic Party anymore, so he had no place to go. And that dominated Fox for a little while. And they have that older version of the Republican voter. Now, truth be told, let's be real, folks. They're gonna die. They're at the end of their life cycle. The young elements of the Republican Party are MAGA through and through. They can't stand Fox News. They'd rather watch Joe Rogan even. They'd rather watch Steve Bannon. They'd rather watch, there's no future for these people. They'd rather watch Sebastian Gorka on Sunday on Newsmax. They're not, Millions of people at 7:59 p.m. turned on Fox News for the first time that day. And by 9:01, they were gone. Good luck. You already lost Bill O'Reilly. You lost Tucker Carlson, who was the only one, in my opinion, who could have filled those shoes because he was a voice for the moment. Like he got something others just couldn't get. And now that he's gone, who are they going to replace it with? Who are they going to put in there? Especially during a primary. Good luck. If you turn to Fox News right now, you just see cheerleading for Trump's enemies. Cheerleading. Good luck. I don't know what else to say. So we'll have more on that when the time comes. I want to go to RFK. We're going to start with that story first, okay? And then there was some stuff I did want to talk about that with Twitter that I didn't get a chance to talk about on Friday. And I do think it's important, even though it's a little bit stale right now. I think it's important. Don't miss, quite frankly, tonight. I'll be on, quite frankly, my monthly interview with my friend Frank. And it's going to be a good one. We have a lot to talk about. A lot. All right. So, look, this was bound to happen because, and let me just pull it up. This was bound to happen because it's true. All right. And when an incumbent president, period, has an enormous amount of power to stop a primary, but typically that power is ultimately derived by his popularity, right? Trump was enormously popular when it came to his popularity among Republicans. He broke all sorts of records before COVID upended voting in the primary. He was turnout records were just enormous. Iowa was an embarrassment to the anti-Trump forces. New Hampshire, which was the state that really, not just on the Republican side, on the Democratic side as well, if you have a problem as an incumbent president running to be renominated, it's going to show up in New Hampshire. Before Trump, the highest vote share for a primary was Ronald Reagan. Number 2, Barack Obama or Bill Clinton. One of they're 2 and 3. I think it's Barack Obama, then Bill Clinton. And then, Herbert Walker Bush had major problems with Pat Buchanan. Jimmy Carter had major problems with Ted Kennedy. But there really is no other comparable example for Joe Biden, considering his polling numbers, because Lyndon Baines Johnson bailed before he embarrassed himself. All the leftists, diehard, I would say, who don't want a primary, because primaries are bad. They're bad. Look, they are. For incumbents, primaries are bad news. Incumbents who have to deal with a serious primary challenger, they lose all the time, full stop. So Democrats really don't want to do this. So that leaves them with a problem, though, because Joe Biden is polling in the 30s. If you have, it depends how you ask. If you have the crowded field like we did, he'll end up in the 30s. If you peg him just against RFK, he does better, but so does RFK. So RFK speaks with Breitbart, and he has this conversation with Joel Pollak, and he says, the DNC is just totally rigged the primary. It's a rigged system. If you thought it was rigged before, it's really rigged now. There are no debates. They don't intend to have debates, and they move the schedule around. Now, this is what I want to spend most of the time talking about. The schedule. Why? Why does this matter? To protect Joe Biden, they're going to make sure that the Democratic nominee is a corporatist Democrat. Hey, progressives, listen up right now. They're screwing you. You will never have another progressive president again. Truly progressive. Had this been the case in 08, in 07 and 08, you would have gotten Hillary Clinton. That's right. That's right. Barack Obama did not have the backing of the black Democratic primary voter until he won the Iowa caucuses. That's why, if you remember, if you were working for Team Obama, they called it the miracle of Iowa, or the Iowa miracle. She cried and leveled out some crocodile tears before New Hampshire, and she got a sympathy vote. It was one of the most disgusting and degrading things I've ever seen, but it worked. However, when they turned and they head south, Obama had enough gravitas. We're going to hear that word again soon. He had enough gravitas from winning Iowa, raising money, and let's face it, the guy was good. The guy could campaign. He may not be able to govern worth his ass, but he could campaign. Hardcore, good at being a presidential candidate. And he was able to pull some of those voters away from her. And obviously, the rest is history. He upset the apple cart. Now, to protect somebody that 65% of Americans don't believe has the mental capacity to be president, they are moving South Carolina to the front, and they're skipping the progressive states. Why? That's how little they think of black voters. That's the truth. You want the God's honest truth? White progressives don't like corporatism and war. At least mostly, and that's their history. Even though they've rolled over and they've done a bunch of tricks for the deep state. Hop on 2 legs. Hop on 1 leg. Roll over. Fetch, doggy. Fetch, fetch, fetch. That's not the tradition of white progressives in Iowa, in New Hampshire, and other places like this. They're going to move it up because they feel black voters are easier to dupe. That's the truth of it. Corporatist Democrats can do better in South Carolina, where there are less progressives and more what they call, so-called conservative to moderate to even conservative, non-white Democratic primary voters, who they always pitch the corporatist candidate as what, folks? They're what? Bernie's the radical leftist, right? And progressives, white progressives, love Bernie, or did. What is Joe Biden? He's the moderate, right? He's the centrist Democrat. Well, they believe non-white Democratic primary voters will eat that shit sandwich a lot easier than Iowans will or New Hampshire progressives will. So they're moving it up. And he's absolutely right about it. Look, it will be a very significant, consequential move, change to the calendar. And Republicans, by the way, have been trying to do this to Trump to prevent Trump by moving California up. All right. They want California. This is a ton of delegates. Over 100. They want California to pick the Republican nominee. All right. And by the way, there are many, and we're going to talk about this in a little bit. There are many of the congressional delegation in California that were in deep trouble in 2022, and Trump helped or sat on the sidelines and didn't hurt at special request of Kevin McCarthy, and they're going to screw him over for it. This is a developing story you will not hear anywhere else. All right, but let's go to this article. Exclusive. RFK slams DNC for rigged primary. No debates. Moving South Carolina to the first state. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who declared his candidacy, yes, I'm a guitar player and Sweetwater's the bomb, who declared his candidacy for president as a Democrat, slammed the Democratic National Committee on SiriusXM's Breitbart News Sunday for having a, quote, rigged, unquote, primary system with no debates and moving voting in South Carolina ahead of New Hampshire on the calendar. Quote, the DNC at this point has taken the official position that there will be no debate. And I think that's unfortunate. I think what the DNC did to New Hampshire is also unfortunate, Kennedy Jr. said to the host, Breitbart News senior editor at large Joel Pollack, addressing what the DNC is doing to the primary system. You may remember one of Tucker Carlson's last shows. Who would be the guest on that? I bet Pfizer didn't take too kindly to that, right? Kennedy Jr. was referring to the DNC changing the order of the early voting states. The DNC pushed Iowa and New Hampshire, a state in which President Joe Biden did not do so well, out of being first to move South Carolina, where Biden did well ahead of the two. Joe Biden is the only president in modern history to not win or place in a single early state. He needed James Clyburn and, more importantly, frankly, Barack Obama to win South Carolina for him. He got crushed in Iowa by Bernie and Buttigieg. He got crushed in New Hampshire by Bernie and Buttigieg. And he needed Barack Obama to pick up the phone, call James Clyburn, make sure Clyburn delivered the votes in South Carolina. Again, Black, African-American, Southern Democratic primary votes in South Carolina, while Barack Obama called all the other candidates and either bullied them or bribed them to get them out of the race. On the other phone, Barack Obama was calling every left-wing media anchor and outlet and all the pundits to get the uniform message, Bernie can't win. Bernie can't win. Bernie can't win. We have 2 weeks to convince Democratic primary voters that although they don't like Joe Biden, they don't want Joe Biden as their president. Remember, Joe Biden was not disqualified once, but twice from being president in his prior runs for office. Not once, but twice. The first time took him out of consideration for decades. He couldn't run again. And the only reason he was picked by Barack Obama is because they wanted the old crusty white guy to make people feel better about voting for a young first-term senator who also was the first African-American candidate. They wanted some stabilizing look. The first time Joe Biden ran for president, he was forced to leave because he is a serial plagiarizer and a serial liar. Not about little things he embellishes about. No. I graduated this place in my class. I'm the first of this one. I got this degree. I know that. Never happened. I was arrested for protesting here. I was pivotal in this act. I did this. Never happened. Not embellishing, non-existent delusions. And in prior generations, that wasn't okay. So he was forced to bow out. This time, Barack Obama won Joe Biden the nomination. And you know what Barack Obama gets for it, by the way? This nice little rivalry. We sewed up the nomination before you did. Are you kidding me? Are you seriously trying to compare Joe Biden to Barack Obama? Barack, it must hurt that you have to go along with this charade. It really must hurt that you have to go along with this charade that Joe Biden got more black votes than you did and that Joe Biden was a stronger Democratic nominee than you are. It burns you. I know it does, because even though you're running his shadow-like government, you're actually the one in charge. I think it's very clear when you go to the White House, nobody knows or cares who Joe Biden is. Like, you're running it. We get it. But it really still must hurt that the history books will have to record this. Because we know you hate Joe Biden. We don't hate him, but you can't stand him. You have no respect for him. You told him not to run against Hillary. You liked Hillary, even though that was a really divisive primary. He had an intellectual understanding with Hillary, like an intellectual kinship with her. Whereas Joe, he just views as a total simpleton, incapable of being president of the United States. So it really must hurt that he has to go along with this charade. You know it does. All right, so President Biden didn't do well there in New Hampshire. He came in fifth, so they took New Hampshire, and they kicked it out of first place. And now they're going to say they're saying that they're going to completely remove the delegates from New Hampshire, and that we should at this point in history, he explained. Or that we should in this point in history. The Democrat described New Hampshire as an exemplar for American democracy. That was the, quote, gold standard for election integrity, since it was the gateway to the rest of the primaries for 100 years. Before we continue with the quote, 1 second, let me get some water. But I do want to stop and say that I have to address the criticism that, especially on the Democratic side, there has long been this desire to replace New Hampshire, because the Democratic electorate, the primary electorate, is most definitely, at least 40% non-white, and historically it could be more. And that New Hampshire and Iowa are very white. All right. But the people who are in favor of keeping caucus and first state primary tradition intact in Iowa and New Hampshire, they feel this is a real snub. And it's nothing to do with, well, we're whiter. That's not why. Hold on 1 second. Let me take a sip of water. In order to win the Iowa caucus, in order to win the New Hampshire primary, they're small states, and you got to get to know people. You have to be good with people. Joe Biden lost Iowa and he lost New Hampshire because this fabrication of Joe Biden, the decent guy, Mr. Uncle Joe, everyone wants to have a beer with, is a lie. It's not real. Joe Biden is a prick. He has always been a prick. He isn't nice. The only one he's ever gotten along with is his colleagues on Capitol Hill. He has never been good at being a retail politician. And in Iowa and in New Hampshire, they test your mettle, folks. They look you in the eyes. They shake your hand. They look you in the eyes. They hang on every word. It is a test. Can this guy be trusted? Or this girl, this woman, can they be trusted? Do I believe them? And because they're smaller, it's easier for people to be able to, oh my God. Listen, DeSantis people, stop with mocking the Tucker firing. Are you do you not have a brain in your heads? I mean, you're making mistake after mistake, but this one's just as stupid as Trump attacking Florida. All right. Which he didn't really do. He's attacking Ron's record. We're going to talk about all this. And there's a reason. Why? Because Trump knows he's everywhere but Florida. So he's trying to get the people of Florida and elsewhere to say, well, why isn't he governing his state? Right? But we'll get there. That's another segment. It's important to remember this. Small populations in these states, they were very good at ferreting out a rat, all right? Or ferreting out somebody who couldn't make it. Joe Biden, if he would have not had to deal with the scrutiny of Iowan caucus goers, then you may not have realized that Joe Biden runs around telling lies about his education and his civil rights record. You would think something totally different of Joe Biden if the first states in these primaries were larger and, dare I say, even to some extent, more diverse states. All right. And also the money, which RFK brings up here. I want to leave that for last. It's very cheap to campaign in, and it has the largest independent bloc in the country. It's talking about New Hampshire specifically. And people don't make their minds up until they see the candidates again and again and again. And they shake the candidate's hands 5 times before deciding who to vote for, Kennedy Jr. stated. They vet these candidates for the whole country. They vet them like you would get vetted if you were running for a city council seat. He further explained why New Hampshire was the better first in the nation primary. And this is a little bit of a trick he's got to do here, folks, because he's got to defend New Hampshire without pissing off South Carolinians. But the truth is, everything he's saying is true. It's much, much more expensive to campaign in South Carolina. Major media markets from Charleston don't touch upstate or downstate, up country. They don't touch it. You need a lot of money. In New Hampshire, all you need is a car. Yeah, running ads, of course, certainly couldn't hurt, but all you need is a car. All you need to do is like the Jack Citarelli, get in your car, go up and down Route 9 and shake hands. It's very much like that in New Hampshire. You can go from diner to diner, fair to fair, farm to farm, police station to police station, fire station to fire station. You can do it. You can run from south in Manchester to the very peak in the north. No problem. Scott Brown literally drove around in a pickup truck. An old pickup truck. Nothing fancy. This is a tradition for a reason, and they know that Joe Biden cannot win. He can't pass that test. He will be thoroughly embarrassed if he has to go against Robert Kennedy Jr. That's where a state, even Iowa, Joe Biden got clobbered in Iowa. I suspect nothing has changed. RFK would have a home turf advantage almost if it was New Hampshire, if they kept the calendar. So the Democrats will save Joe Biden. It's like Lisa Murkowski changing the state of Alaska to ranked choice voting. And by the way, Utah, there are rhinos in Utah who want to do it to save Mitt Romney. Meanwhile, they may do that and get the short-term boon of saving a failed incumbent. But at the same time, they're giving something away. They're giving their state away. Something greater will be a consequence than just one person. And in the case of the Democratic primary, you will have corporatists. You will have warmongering, corporatist Democrats as your nominee for the foreseeable future. Again, Barack Obama would not have been able to beat Hillary Clinton if the South Carolina primary came before Iowa and New Hampshire. All right? And that's coming from a state that voted for Jesse Jackson in high numbers in 1992. Really won. You have to go in and handshake people in nail salons and in diners, and you get grilled. These candidates get grilled by an 80-year-old woman who reads The Economist and reads the Financial Times every day. And, she asks questions about some arcane matter. And then the follow-up question. Then another follow-up question. All of these things that you'll never get from CNN or from the New York Times or the kind of soundbite culture in every other state. The the candidates can raise $1 billion and take over that state. Kind of aerial bombardment, carpet bombing with advertisements. And it really is about money. New Hampshire is the one place where you got to do retail politics you cannot escape. This is so profound and so profoundly true that Democrats are going to rue this day. They are going to rue this day because it's going to produce very, unattractive candidates. Look at how much Chris Christie spent his wad in New Hampshire. Jeb Bush, New Hampshire, Iowa, did nothing. By the time he got to South Carolina, they spent a lot of money too, but it still just didn't matter. Even John McCain made a go of it there against George W. Bush. John McCain was supposed to be the runner-up. George Bush would have came in with his oil money and he would have carpet bombed McCain and it would have been over in the first state. It wasn't. This is not about demographics. It's about tradition. These smaller states are supposed to level the playing field for different candidates. So the everyday candidate, the lesser financed candidate can really have their say, really compete, at least give it a chance. And again, I'm going to keep saying this so Democrats understand it. You never would have gotten a President Barack Obama. He would have lost to Hillary Clinton. And who knows? You may have gotten a President John McCain. Although I don't think that's likely. The bottom line is, 2 terms a Republican. He destroyed the economy. He started an unpopular war. Or at least he didn't destroy. That's not fair. He didn't destroy the economy. He just did nothing while everyone destroyed the economy. And then turned to socialism to bail him out of it. When you have so many Americans, quote again, who are concerned about election integrity, we should be doing everything we can in our party, the Democratic Party, to show that, this is not rigged system, that it is actually democracy. People can run and that they can get to debate and that the public is going to be able to see them and the DNC is doing kind of the opposite. Kennedy Jr. added about what the DNC is doing in the primary system. Quote again, there's too many Americans who already think that the whole system is rigged against them. And this is confirmation of that. And I think that's troubling. Again, 100% RFK is right. This isn't even debatable. He is 100% correct. I always felt that the people who were in South Carolina and other states, especially more diverse states, they had an argument. They did, but about demographics, but that was not as important. And I'm sorry to say, it's just true. It's not as important as having a level playing field. You want to pick another small state that's demographically diverse, okay. But guess what? Nevada is demographically diverse, and Joe Biden still got stomped there. Why? It's caucus state. It's a lot like Iowa and New Hampshire. It does have major media markets. You have Reno, you have Clark, but you can compete there. You can shake hands. That's how Bernie Sanders was only like 8 points behind him with African-American caucus goers. Why not push Nevada to the front? Another small population state. Easy for any candidate to travel to, around and shake hands and speak to voters and compete. Because Joe Biden can't win Nevada. Precisely because it's a retail state. The tradition of retail politics is more important than the demographic concerns. I'm sorry. It's just that simple. I always understood, and even living in Florida for as long, I was always, myself. You get a little bit of state pride, right? Florida's diverse. Florida's big. It's winner take all on the Republican side. Why is Florida after South Carolina? There are arguments that you could just make. Which is more important? To me, I think it's much more important to encourage not just the candidates who have a pedigree, not just the candidates who are backed by the establishment, not just the candidates who are backed by K Street, not just the candidates who are backed by Wall Street, who are flush with cash and can compete in any state they want, which is why moving up California is stupid on the Republican side, but they're doing everything in their power to stop Donald Trump. They think they can deliver it for Ron DeSantis. Yeah, it's a great idea. Have one of the bluest states, most expensive media markets decide the Republican nominee. That's definitely going to make a strong nominee for the fall. Absolutely. This is incredibly stupid. But this is what status quo powers. These are the decisions they make to preserve status quo. They don't really care about the back end. Lisa Murkowski doesn't care that she's going to give Alaska to Democrats. She don't give a damn. Mitt Romney doesn't care if in 10 years Utah votes Democratic, ranked choice voting, because he had to save his own skin. He doesn't care. It's about them. And the Democratic Party here does not care whether or not they produce corporatist, shill, warmongering Democratic nominees for the foreseeable future and basically kick their own activists between their legs, because that's what they're doing here. If you're on the progressive wing of the Democratic Party, you should be vehemently opposed to this. Let's move forward. Biden is yet to announce he is running for re-election, but as it was reported last week, his team is making the final touches to the president's plans to launch his campaign as early as Tuesday. However, while he has been delaying his announcement, others like Kennedy Jr. and Marianne Williamson, an author and spiritual thought leader, quote, that was in quote, who ran for president as a Democrat in 2020, have declared they would run. So again, bottom line is here. Damn, it's 12:36 already. Bottom line is here. This will have longer lasting consequences unless they change it back. Maybe they decide they're going to change it temporarily to save Joe Biden. But I'll tell you what, folks, it's not easy to change the primary calendar cohesively. Things can get real crazy, real hectic, real fast. It's easier to do if you have an incumbent in the White House because they have so much power and influence over the party. But this move, Democrats will come to regret, especially if it becomes a long-term move. This has been in the works now for a long time. Basically, I'm not even kidding. Basically, since Joe Biden was elected, that's how long they've been at this. So understand, they have put a lot of thought to it. And to them, it just simply doesn't matter that they could wind up producing those kinds of nominees, even as the base of their party continues to move to the left. Because I got to tell you, polling the Democratic primary in 2020 was actually kind of sad throughout 19 and 20. And I for those of you who have been around watching the show for a while, I had been saying this, that really the question for me, the media was always focused on these stupid little, campaigns against Trump and Walsh and whoever the hell else, Baker. And Baker's going to get a lot of votes in New Hampshire because he's neighboring Massachusetts. I mean, nonsense. The main question in the 2019 and 2020 primary season was this: will Democrats evolve, basically ascend to a self-determining party as Republicans did in 2015 and 16? They said to Fox News, Republicans said, you cannot pick my nominee for me. You can't. I don't care what propaganda you push about who can win, who can't win. Will Democrats ascend like Republicans did to a self-determining voting party? And the answer, obviously, now we know, is no. The media and the corporations pick the Democratic nominee, not the voters. They're easily influenced and manipulated. Republicans, not so much. There's a slice of them, yes, but it's just the proof's in the pudding. I'm not making a partisan statement here. It's an objective statement. The party wanted Bernie Sanders. They didn't want Joe Biden. Yet only California and Colorado held the line. Minnesota, you flaked. You caved. You got spooked. They spooked you. Maine, they got you. Very, very clearly, when we ask people, Democratic primary voters, even in Florida, by the way, even after Bernie made the comment he made about Cuba, they still said, my heart is with Bernie. Everywhere, Texas, everywhere, they wanted Bernie. But when asked why will you be voting for Joe Biden, I don't believe Bernie can win. Well, then you got duped. That was a very concerted effort, and you fell for it. You fell for it. Republicans did not fall for it. When Fox News, everyone, from their own pollster to the New York Times to everyone, everywhere, Hillary versus Cruz, Cruz +1. Hillary versus Jeb, Jeb +4. Or maybe Hillary +1 or 2 shows very close race. Hillary versus Trump, Clinton +14. Trump's the only candidate who's not competitive. When in reality, Trump was the only candidate who was going to be able to beat Hillary Clinton. Nobody would have beaten Hillary Clinton. Going back then, I would ask people. It's very simple. Okay. Marco Rubio polls better than Donald Trump? Okay. Which blue wall state is Marco Rubio going to take? Michigan? Is he uniquely appealing to the voters of Monroe County, Macomb County, Saginaw, anywhere? Where? What state is Ted Cruz going to take? How are we getting to 270? Are we now indulging this fantasy that Virginia's going to flip back again as long as we nominate somebody like Ted Cruz or Jeb Bush? Is Jeb Bush going to flip Florida back? He's going to win it like his brother won it twice. I mean, which state were they going to carry? None of them. Be lucky to have carried Ohio. Lucky. Iowa probably would have went to Clinton by a little bit since it had voted to the left of Ohio since 2000 until Trump came along. Wisconsin didn't even vote for George Herbert Walker Bush. It voted for the caucus. That hadn't gone for Republicans since Reagan in 84. And Pennsylvania and Michigan, despite how close sometimes, some people got, Romney was only down by 4.5. He lost Pennsylvania by 4 or 5 points. Michigan, he got his butt whipped. Wisconsin, despite having Paul Ryan on the ticket, he still got crushed like Dan Kelly. And Republicans didn't fall for it. They didn't. If you ask Republicans who has the best chance to beat Hillary Clinton, they would tell you point blank, I don't care what the polls say, Donald Trump, absolutely, hands down, 100%. Sadly, in 2019, and it is sad, I'm telling you, it was sad to watch. Talking to these people, it was kind of depressing. So you're going to vote for this guy because you think he's more electable. Because who told you that? Oh, the polls, the media, the polls. It's sad. I don't know about you folks. I'm getting older. I've been through a lot of campaigns with the electability factor. You have got to nominate Al Gore because he's the most electable one. You have got to nominate John Kerry. He is the most electable. You've got to nominate John McCain. He is the most electable, hands down. Hell, even Reagan. 76. Reagan tried to be president before 80. Reagan was considered unelectable. Unelectable. A nutcase who's going to start World War III, potentially a new nuclear war. By the way, he wants to take away grandma's benefits. He was considered unelectable. You have got to nominate Mitt Romney. Don't worry, I'm severely conservative. I won Massachusetts. I'm super electable. Governors' elections are the least predictive of presidential performance, number one. And number two, they are the least indicative of how strong a candidate will be. Bob McDonnell won Virginia by the same margin that Ron DeSantis won Florida in 2009. Bob McDonnell won Virginia by the same margin that DeSantis won it by in Florida by in 2022. And I submit to you that Bob McDonnell would have lost the state of Florida against Barack Obama if he was the Republican nominee. I mean, he would have lost the state of Virginia. Excuse me. Mitt Romney won Massachusetts by 5 points. How did he do in Massachusetts when he ran for president? Right. How did he do in Virginia, by the way, against Barack Obama? Even though Bob McDonnell won it by almost 20 points. I thought it was a rightward shift happening in Virginia. Believe me, the same arguments you're hearing right now, I've heard them all before, folks. They don't come to fruition because they're not true. Sad Democrats did that. And now they're getting this. RFK is totally right. They're rigging it for Joe Biden, and it's going to come back to bite them. It's going to come back to bite them. All right. If you are a progressive, you absolutely should be jumping up and down right now in opposition to this. But they're not. They're being quiet. And I, in fact, actually was looking at some of what I know to be very left-wing people, some of their responses to RFK. Unbelievable. You can't win, idiot. Just get behind Biden. First of all, RFK is a real problem for Donald Trump. That's number one. I don't know if Donald Trump can beat RFK. I don't think he can. My instinct right now is no, he cannot. And it's more than instinct. I'm looking at the people who are supporting him. There are independents and Democrats who will vote for Donald Trump if RFK is not the nominee. There are. And without a doubt, RFK would clean a non-Trump Republicans candidate's clock because he's taking a ton of MAGA votes against other Republicans. He would kill Nikki Haley. He would kill Ron DeSantis. So it's like they, as of right now, absolutely would crush him. He would crush him. I hate to break it to everybody. I'm telling you, he'd probably beat Trump. If they were smart, they would nominate him, but they won't. They're attacking him. You idiot, just get behind Biden. The shine is off Joe Biden. Did you see the Harvard-Harris poll? Trump is -3. Biden's -13 now. One of the things that played to Biden's benefit that Hillary did not have was, albeit a bogus fake image, yes, but it was nevertheless a favorable image among the electorate. At least more favorable than not. That's gone now. All right. But Democrats will not. I'm telling you, they will not nominate this guy. Then now they would maybe, under the right circumstances, but, shifting around the calendar, not holding debates. And he's even saying his wife is losing money from his, that's, to me, that's crazy. But that's the hive mind for you. His wife is losing money off of it. So people aren't doing business with them. And he's even saying some members of his own family are afraid of what Democrats will do to them. This is basically a family with like battered women syndrome. Every time one of them gets out of line, they wind up getting assassinated. I'm not kidding. Let's cut the crap here. All right, let's get to a break here. We'll come back in a hot minute. National security experts are warning our aging power grid is more vulnerable than ever. January marked the third time a power station in North Carolina was damaged by gunfire recently. We also just had an out-of-control fire. Authorities are saying the attack raises a new level of threat and are checking our power grid for vulnerabilities. They've identified 9 key substations. If these substations are attacked, power could be knocked out from coast to coast for up to 18 months. Imagine a blackout lasting not days, but weeks or months. Your life would be frozen in time, right at the moment the power fails. Lights all over the world would go out. People throwing people into total darkness. And that's why having your own solar power is now more important than ever. With the Patriot power generator, you get a solar generator that doesn't install into your house because it's portable. You could take it in with you, even use it inside. But it's powerful enough for your phones, medical devices, even your refrigerator. And right now, you can go to 4patriots.com, use the promo code TPP10 to get 10% off your purchase on anything in the store, including the Patriot Power Generator. There is even, I'm going to just stop right there. There is even a combo deal right now with the People's Pundit 3-month survival kit with the Patriot Power Generator for the same price of just the Patriot Power Generator, and you could use the discount code on top of it. It's a massive deal. You'll also get their famous guarantee for an entire year after your order, plus free shipping on orders over $97. A portion of every sale is donated to charities who support our veterans and their families. Just go to 4patriots.com, use the code TPP10 to get 10% off at checkout. Again, that's 4patriots.com. Use the code TPP10 to get yours today. And there it is right there. 5 days, 688 servings of survival food with your Patriot Power Generator. Tell you right now, Laura and I jump right on it. And you should as well. Let's look at some of you. I do have some stuff Laura left from last week, but I mean, really, Aaron says, look, you know, from from an American right point of view, Aaron, right? Like, he's bad. RFK is bad on many of these issues, but he's not a cabal member. He's not a deep state person. He's not trying to rip down the Constitution. He's not trying to bring about some, you know, global new world order. He's not a globalist. He doesn't believe in this marriage between corporate America and DC like this, you know, where there is now, as he told Tucker, a ruling class that has a cushy kind of like soft form of socialism, giving them everything they want. And then there's brutal form of like fascist communism for everybody else, especially the lower tier. So I submit that there would be a good deal of Trump voters who would vote for RFK over another Republican. I believe that. I know it. I don't believe it. It's true. I know it. And I submit that there are Democratic voters who would vote for Trump against Biden or anyone else if it's not RFK. There's like this synergy going on. It's real because it's about the people who care about what I just said. What society is devolving into. To them, that matters more than where one candidate might stand on abortion or where one candidate might stand on vaccines or something, right? To them, that is not the big picture. The big picture is this state marriage with, I mean, it's fascism. It's not, so many Republicans, you know, it's socialists, they're socialists, or, you know, they're downright Marxists. No, not really. They're fascists. They may be cushy socialism for them, but for you and everybody else, they're fascists. The American left is fascist. It is. And by the way, I'm going to say it again. Fascism is not on the right. Fascism is not right wing. Fascism is a form of socialism, which of course is left wing. The American right is limited government. It doesn't make any sense. All right. All right. Yeah, man. Imagine what he would do with appointments. Who just said that? Amy Smith. Great. What a great comment. Yeah, I mean, there's so many people that they wouldn't care about some of the other things with RFK so much as they would about like changing right, like that, like the stuff. What would he do with appointments? And, you know, be anti deep state people who hate FISA, right? I don't see him nominating people who allow the deep state to stay, you know, behind the curtain the way that they have been able to stay behind the curtain. All right, let's see. We have to get into DeSantis's tour here, which is just awkward at best. Let me see if I can. You can't say. It's like, you can't say, let me just play the clip. Hold on. How long is this clip? It's not that long. It's 10 seconds. So he's going overseas. If you guys may have seen the report on Friday from Charlie Gasparino, who said that donors are really starting to get very nervous. Trump's tweet is mocking that, by the way. But they're getting very nervous that nobody believes the push polling. All right. By the way, the NBC News poll, why don't you look at who Hart Research partnered with on that poll? Because so far, there are only two polls that have DeSantis in the 30s and Trump around 50 or below 50. Everybody else has Trump in the mid 50s, even at 60, with DeSantis in the low 20s, if not now in the teens. So Reuters Ipsos, which many of them obviously have not done a great job in the past, but I mean, everyone is, in the same ballpark except for them. And who's the NBC pollster? Go look it up. And who's the Wall Street Journal pollster? Trump's old pollster who doesn't like it. So I just find that a little bit funny. I don't know. I can't weight the numbers and manipulate the numbers to get DeSantis into the 30s. He's in deep trouble. Everybody knows it. So let's go forward under that assumption, because it's not an assumption. It is reality. It's the truth. So Charlie Gasparino reports that they're all really worried and they need someone with, quote, gravitas to come in and help DeSantis. The candidate has to win the election himself. I don't know who on the right has more gravitas than Donald Trump. So I don't know how you're going to out-gravitas Donald Trump. I mean, the strategy here is a little ridiculous. But now that I am more familiar with the thinking here, I believe what Charlie reported, because the earful from people I got on over the weekend, there's a couple real bad assumptions by Team DeSantis. Real bad assumptions. One is, if he doesn't run now and Trump wins, he's going to try to run for president again and he won't be able to beat him. The other one is, if he doesn't run now and Trump loses, by the time 2028 comes around, Trump's probably going to run again, which is ridiculous. He's not going to lose again. He's not going to run that. He's an older man. He's not going to run in 28. But by that time, DeSantis will be irrelevant, which I think is kind of ridiculous. You do your job and you do it well. You're a two-term governor who won overwhelmingly. You could be a rock star if you don't make the wrong decisions. Still, you could still salvage this and become a rock star. There's no way he's not going to be relevant. Yes, there is a danger that somebody else is more relevant. That's true. That's why, though, the smart move was to just not and make nicey with Trump. And if you did, I know it was like he was at the top of the VP list. So you were afraid you weren't going to get picked. There's something else going on. He apparently thinks he's too good to be vice president. It's like a backbencher thing. This is problematic. I mean, I don't even know what to say to that, but that appears to be the case. I think the smart, and here's a real bad assumption, that if he runs and he loses, or runs and he wins, that the Trump voter is not going to hold this against him. I guess when you don't release crosstabs and you don't put out real polling, somebody has to be telling him some really, really bad advice. Because I'm telling you right now, these people do not forget. If he runs and loses and Trump becomes the nominee, and then Trump goes on to win, they're going to hate him anyway. If he runs and Trump loses, they're going to hate his guts. If he runs, Trump loses, the general, they're going to blame him for creating division. Under no circumstance will these people not hate you if you press forward. And you can't win without them. Because I'm going to say this, and somebody had asked me, I'm not going to say who it was, but somebody had asked me a very simple question over the weekend. Is the Trump or bust vote bigger than the suburban women vote or suburban vote that the DeSantis camp is promising me they're going to win? The answer to that is absolutely. The answer to that is it's not even true what some of these people are arguing. And in fact, I'll pull it up right now. Let's look at Arizona, for instance. Any day now. Any day. Sorry, we're going through Nevada, which is another thing I could show you. That's another great idea. Hold on. Book club. Maps galore. I wish Twitter had a better way to show media. Would be great. There's the new Republican mascot. If I only had a heart, right? Oh, come on. What's it out of here by now? Let's look, for instance, at Nevada. We went back and we were looking at some of Nevada's polling. And let me stop the screen share, pull it up. I'll make it bigger so you guys can see it. Because again, I mean, it's on Twitter. The images are on Twitter, so I'm going to make them bigger. It's better than me pulling. It's the fastest way for me to pull it up right now. All right, so we're going back and looking at Nevada, for instance. In case you didn't know, Adam Laxalt has joined Team DeSantis. And it seems to be, because people are like, it's surprising to me. Laxalt, though, is not he was able to pull together all of endorsements from all wings of the Republican Party, but to call him a longtime Trump ally, which is how that was being reported, is not necessarily true. There are people I have, I know and have known Laxalt for a while that say, that he was never really 100%. You can never really be 100% with Adam Laxalt, which is funny to me because if that was true, then you should have said that. During, the 2022 election. I don't understand why you can't just be honest, no matter whether it's an election year or not. Just be honest with people. If you don't like somebody, don't pretend you like them for the time being just to win an election. If there's something wrong with somebody, tell people. Anyway. I guess that's why it's the People's Pundit, right? It's kind of like our niche over here. We're the only one who does that. All right, so here's how Trump was performing against Joe Biden. And here you can see a Trump plus 10 in the state of Nevada, something I've never found before, and in fact have long argued that Republicans should just ignore the state. It's a money trap. And you can spend a lot of money to get, close within 2 points, but you're not going to win it. All right. At the presidential level specifically. Senate, getting just difficult as well. But the bottom line is, Joe Lombardo, looking at his lead in this poll, very similar to Laxalt's lead. If you look at with something Mark Mitchell and I tried to tell you a couple of weeks ago, the share of the vote is more important than the margin. So when he sees DeSantis has a 1 point edge, bigger lead over Biden, and he tells you it's really suspect demographics that it's coming from, when these people decide, they will decide to vote for Joe Biden, and that will be it. So that lead is misleading. And that the more important figure is that Trump is higher in vote share. And at that point, he was at 48 as opposed to the lower mid 40s, right? Here's Trump is at 48 statewide. Look at Clark County. 40% for Joe Biden, 48% in Clark County for Donald Trump. Washoe had more undecideds than Clark County. Trump had a 4-point lead, but with the white educated Reno voter kind of problem, then that would be interesting to see whether or not Trump would hold that lead in Washoe. If you compare this to Lombardo and Laxalt, here we also had a 2-point lead for Laxalt. However, if you looked at Washoe County, we nailed it. That's Cortez's margin, basically, in Washoe County. Now, she winds up... It's true, Laxalt got the vast majority of undecideds, but he lost Washoe County. Do I believe that's from the lights mysteriously going off and a mail drop breaking, totally different because he won the first mail drop? Yeah, I mean, I'm willing to concede. I'm sure they play games. They do. Every election has shenanigans, folks. Just a matter of whether or not it was enough. But look at Clark County. He was down in Clark County to Masto Cortez, 46 to 45. He never increased his share of the vote here. Pretty damn good, though, 45, right? But Masto got and basically beat him in Clark by about 5 points, all right? Compare that to a much more undecided result. Lombardo was down here in Washoe County, but he wound up winning more of the undecideds, and he passed Steve Sisolak in Washoe. He held it. That was key to his win, as was how well he ended up performing in Clark County. The bottom line is here, did you see Masto's margin, her vote share in both Washoe and Clark compared to Sisolak and Biden? She's at 46 already in Clark, 51 in Washoe. That should have been an indication that the rest of Clark was going to come around, or people weren't going to come out and vote for Laxalt. What happened was Lombardo's name helped him in Clark County, and a bunch of people who told us that they would vote for Donald Trump in Clark County did not vote for Adam Laxalt. That is just true. And very clear what happened in Washoe County is the same thing. Here is Adam Laxalt below Trump's overall vote share and already down by 7. Or really, no, excuse me, 8, 9. Sorry, 50.6, round up to 51. Already down by 9, while Trump is up by 4. Clark County, same thing, 48 to 40. Trump is already, he's up 8 in Clark, but he's already at 48. Where's Laxalt? Down by 1 at 45. So there are voters here who say, I will vote for Donald Trump, but will not vote for Adam Laxalt. Do you understand what that means? Am I explaining this enough? Why is that? Because if I could find, and I can't that quickly, so bear with me. Give me a second here. The truth about the suburban vote is much more complicated than people want you to believe it is. In these urban areas, Trump does better than other Republicans. And truth be told, in some suburbs like Washoe, he clearly was doing better. In Arizona, this has been a long-term trend where Republican share of the suburban vote, their vote share overall is going down. Do you know the only 2 election cycles in the last 20 years where you can see that trend arrest at the top of the ticket is when Trump was on the ballot? Ditto for Georgia. What is really happening is not about a simple argument about white suburban voters. Once a state becomes 60% plus urban vote, the share that Republicans need to win in the burbs goes up in order to carry the state statewide. In North Carolina, Trump didn't have any slippage in suburbs like Morehead City. He crushed it. You ever been to Morehead? It's filled with pretty wealthy voters, restaurant enthusiasts, antique collectors who got a pretty nice pocket. He increased his vote share from 16 to 20. It's 40-something% urban vote in North Carolina, 45 at most statewide. It's now over 60 in Georgia. It's 70 plus in Nevada. So answer me this. Which is more important? How you do in Clark County or how you do in Washoe? You could lose Washoe by the margin that Laxalt won, that Laxalt lost it by. Lombardo won, but he won barely. What really made the difference for Lombardo and Laxalt was that Lombardo did better in Clark County, even though he lost it. If Laxalt shaved 2 points off his loss in Clark County, he still would have won. Even losing Washoe, he still would have won. But he did not appeal to these working class Hispanics, many of whom didn't come out, some who did but voted from Lombardo and Cortez Masto. Yeah, there were those voters. Obviously, not many, but enough. And they would vote for Donald Trump in much greater numbers than they even voted for Lombardo. It's right there. You can see it. It's right there. It's causing me, someone who was a Nevada skeptic for Republicans, don't waste your money. Republicans are overrepresented in the polls. The Democratic machine is going to roll out as many mail-in ballots as they need. Don't you worry. The truth is, the only way to defeat that is by doing better in areas that are Democratic areas. And we, in fact, did speak to a guy who told us, if I go vote, I'll vote for Laxalt. Guess what? He didn't vote. There were a lot of them, a lot of him. Hispanic guy, voted for Joe Biden, did not vote in 2016, voted for Joe Biden in 2020, said he screwed up, would vote for Donald Trump, and said, if I go, I'll vote for Adam Laxalt. But he didn't. He didn't show up. Would he vote in a presidential cycle? Damn right. You bet your ass he will. So it's much, much more complicated. In some states, the suburban argument isn't even the bigger argument. And then in other states, the suburban argument isn't true. And then even in more states, other states, still, it's much more complicated than you think it is. Because there are different kinds of suburbs depending on the different states. Is it a working class suburb in Allegheny County? Why is it that Doug Mastriano and Dr. Oz, even a celebrity, well known, could not match Trump in Allegheny County? Why, how, and why did they underperform Trump in Allegheny County, the suburbs of Pittsburgh? And for that matter, Senate candidates in Georgia. 2 cycles in a row now have lagged Donald Trump in the Atlanta metro area. Forget about red counties. Forget about, swing purple counties. The Atlanta metro area. How is it that Dan Kelly in Wisconsin could not put up the numbers in Green Bay that Donald Trump can in the suburbs of Green Bay in Brown County? It's not always true. It's much, much, much more complicated. So the question for me is very simple. How big is this Trump or bust vote? And is it bigger than the vote that they're talking about? Trump losing. No, but those voters won't vote for Trump. Because when I poll and I look, I see 8 to 15% of Biden 2020 voters saying, I screwed up, I'd vote for Donald Trump. And when I look at Trump's vote from 2020, it's less than 2% who would not vote for him. Statistically insignificant. Twitter's not real, folks. Twitter is not real. It is not scientific. A scientific poll that speaks to 3,000 people, which is what we did, that's real. Out of 3,000 people, the vast majority of whom voted in 2020. Not all of them. There are new voters in there. The vast majority, all of those interviews, and less than 2% said, I would vote for another candidate or Joe Biden. Less than 2%. Yet Biden voters in double digits, high single to low double digits, say they would vote for Donald Trump this time. That's what matters to me. Not these little ethereal arguments that these people are making or ephemeral arguments they're making that don't really have a sound foundation. So when I'm projecting who's the stronger candidate, what is the map going to look like if so-and-so is a candidate? I'd ask you the same question about the other candidates so far running. What Rust Belt state? Don't show me stupid push polls. We had them in 2016 as well. Talking about demographics. What Rust Belt state? Is Nikki Haley, Mike Pompeo, Ron DeSantis, or any of them, Asa Hutchinson, which one are they going to win? Because a lot of people thought George W. Bush could carry Wisconsin too. Came real close once, but he failed. Same thing with Pennsylvania. Real close one time, but he failed. Which one? Illuminate me. So with the polls in looking dire for him and the donors getting very, very shaky legs, they were looking for somebody with gravitas to abandon Trump or look like he stabbed Trump in the back. I'm going with DeSantis. I know who the person is, and I can't believe they thought that was gravitas enough. It's not that I'm putting that person down. I love him actually, but it's not enough. It's not going to change the calculus. So now he's off on a world tour, and you're trying to look presidential as a governor. You have no foreign policy experience. It is by far one of your most vulnerable things that issues. So governors try to do this. Scott Walker did it, remember? And they're going to go out and they're going to try to make themselves look presidential, speak to global leaders, try to make them ready for prime time, put them out there like, I could see this guy negotiating with foreign leaders. He's meeting a certain bar, a certain standard. It's hard to do this against Trump because, of course, the guy's like the master of the deal. I mean, he looks so good, he's always swaggering around. You got to make yourself meet a basic bar if you want to try to take on Trump. And here's what happened. He was asked in Japan about, and this, what's her name from CNN put it up. He was asked in Japan about the polling numbers and how they looked. And one of the major problems that DeSantis is having is that he's an awkward guy. Anyone who's ever met him, you know what I'm talking about. He's an awkward dude. He's not good personally. Seems to be a rather intelligent guy, but sometimes that can work against you when you're running for president, or you're running for anything, really. But he never was a good debater. Charlie Crist, I thought, cleaned his clock in the debate, frankly. I do. Or at least not the whole thing, but there was a moment during the debate where he pinned Ron down on whether or not he would pledge to run to serve a second term. Like, you're running for a second term, where you pledge to. It was bad. Now, Crist is not respected at all in the state of Florida anymore. It was a midterm year that should have favored Republicans, and Ron DeSantis's record was more than sufficient, obviously, to run on. And nobody likes a turncoat. Charlie Crist. I said that multiple times. I guess I view them the same. Charlie Crist definitely viewed as a turncoat in Florida. Nobody likes him, but this happened today, which what's her name from CNN put up, and this is indicative of DeSantis' problem.
Governor, polls show you falling behind Trump. Any thoughts on that?
Guys, I'm not a candidate, so we'll see if and when that changes.
Let's do it one more time. First of all, look at the head bobbing. Look at the eyes, the facial expressions, and then also, this insulting. I'm not a candidate. Then what the hell are you doing in Japan? You're a candidate. Stop it. Stop it. All right. And this, the insulting of the voter thing is just dumb. It's dumb. It's not smart. Of course you're a candidate. Stop. But do it again. And it goes because they really do believe that when he announces, things are going to change. And unfortunately, I'll say this again before I play it again, because I want you to look at him. Candidates, when they announce, historically, it has only ever amounted to a temporary bump. That's all you can really count on, if you get it. And not all of them do, but most do. And then the candidate gets vetted, comes under scrutiny, and either rises to the occasion or falls under the weight of it. And in every time DeSantis has had his moment where he had to rise, he failed miserably. The last of them being DC. Obviously, the indictment was bungled. How he handled Tucker was bungled. Well, good for Ron DeSantis. He won't have to deal with that anymore, right? Ukraine, the most powerful voice in cable news, will not be after him to square away his answer on Ukraine. That's monumental for Republican primary voters. Play it again.
Governor, polls show you falling behind Trump. Any thoughts on that?
Guys,
I'm not a candidate, so we'll see if and when that changes.
Oh, Lord. It's not going to work. And I understand a lot of people out there, you're rooting for the guy. He's going to have to change course. This is not going to go well. It's not. Everywhere now, whether it's the Financial Times, whether it's the New York Times, who was it before? The Economist, I believe. Hold on. Let me just check something out. These are people who absolutely were like rooting for Ron DeSantis to beat him. It's a strange bird. Somebody said, yeah, it's not good. It just doesn't look good. Where is it? Yeah, that's a whole other ball game. I'm not going to get into the National Post article. Wall Street Journal. It's the Wall Street Journal. DeSantis begins world tour, plays down 2024 bid. And then right under that, Biden-Trump 2024 race looks more likely. The Republican governor met with Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida, discussing North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's provocations and the Chinese Communist Party. It just doesn't look good, folks. It does not look good. All right. However, did this filing finally go through? I don't know. It's possible. It may have finally went through, but let me look through the FEC records real quick. I think that I want to say somebody sent me something. I just didn't verify it, so I don't want to say it yet. But House Principal Campaign Committee. So far, all I see is ready for Ron. I don't see. Oh no, there is more. Hold on. Let's see. There it is. Yeah, there it is. What is today? What is this? We don't have it. This can be because we're still processing the data. Try looking for raw version of committee filings. They're the only ones that are done. I do see and I'll just show you what I'm looking at. Okay. Let me stop this screen share, pull it up. It does look like it could be somebody did something funny, but, and yeah, sometimes there are bogus things, but whoops, where is it? That was the wrong one. I shared the wrong one. Sorry about that. Remove, stop screen share, pull it up, pull up the other one, browse candidates, FEC. There it is. Yeah, so there it is. And you can see it here. It does Ronald DeSantis, Republican Party, election years 24, president, office president. So it is possible that it just hasn't gone through yet. And in fact, he did put it in. I'm not sure, though. It could also be somebody bogusly did something, but we'll just have to see. Run, I'm seeing. Run. Congress draft, New Hampshire, post general 2022. This was done January. No, it's not here yet. It's possible that somebody put some bogus thing up. We'll see. But obviously, we all know it's happening. So, there's a couple of things. It just looks really weird. I mean, you cannot, you just cannot look at that and think that when this announcement happens, it's going to result in some kind of like handled rock star moment. I just don't see it. I don't see it. But there was something else I was looking for because it was what I told you. Somebody had quoted it. It was from this and basically said, when I announce and when these other indictments come down, then I'm going to be doing better in the polls to the donors. And I mean, I told you guys this for now it's being reported. So I wanted you guys to see it. Not that I'm trying to like validate what I'm saying. I never say something that I, don't believe I have nailed down. That has been the pitch to donors. Don't worry. The indictments are going to help me. The indictments are going to help me. And if I get them one-on-one after all these indictments, I can beat them. And I just don't see it. I see this getting worse because I remember it really is reminding me of Scott Walker. I remember Scott Walker's days. I remember when, Scott Walker, who, by the way, I'll be real honest with you guys. I, as a pollster in 2015, looked at Scott Walker's performance in Iowa and New Hampshire. He was the only candidate we had ever polled who was leading in both states until Trump. Before that, it was you win Iowa, then somebody goes on to win New Hampshire, and then the more moderates in South Carolina, because it is more moderate in South Carolina, then it looks more like New Hampshire as far as ideology, composition of the electorate. It looks more like New Hampshire, even though it's a southern state, than it does look like Iowa. Iowa caucus goers are much more conservative than South Carolina primary voters. So somebody would win Iowa, the conservative candidate. The more moderate establishment candidate would win New Hampshire. And then they'd battle it out and South Carolina would decide, and then we'd all move forward. Scott Walker was winning both of those states in our polling and others as well. But he looked like a dark horse rock star. However, when he finally stepped in it, he went downhill. He did not go up. And a lot of people told me the same thing that I'm hearing now. He's not handled. He's just really smart. And, it comes across like that. Okay. When you change your story on Ukraine 5 times, when you change your story on the indictment 3 times, when you change, you're being handled. You're being told what to say. Someone who's not being handled says what they have to say, and then they generally stick to it. Don't give me this. He's smart. Scott Walker was smart too. They're all, generally, except for Joe Biden, all generally pretty smart guys. I just don't, I don't buy it. It sounds to me like, it sounds to me that it is what it is. I don't know. Yeah, I do see that other poll by Clarity Campaign. I can tell you because they were being attacked by DeSantis supporters. It shows a 45-point lead for Trump with him touching 60, or he's above it, actually. I did look at them. I looked, I'm just not that familiar. I can tell you this, though. They are a left-wing group. And some people were saying, well, the lefties want Trump to win because they think Biden can beat him. If they thought Biden can beat him, they wouldn't be prosecuting him. All right. I mean, let's get real here. All right. I'm sure Clarity did not want to be the first poll to put Trump above 60. All right. So that's ridiculous. I did see a couple of things in their methodology, however, that I think should be helped. They had attention filters on there. When you're conducting online panel responses or panel polls, there are several things that really you should be implementing to make sure that the data is clean and that it's sound and trustworthy data. And a lot of these other people do not run any filters through. So if it's somebody who you can tell is just picking random responses or picking the same thing throughout, they may not be a legitimate response. They also appended them to the voter file. They did what's called matching or deduping, which we do. We always tell people it's a big deal because you're going to see the difference between a consumer survey and a voter file panel. There's going to be a big difference. And it is possible that they removed responses, that were not clean. That they should be. They're not real. They didn't match to the voter file who they said they were. And then that's, somebody just trying to make a little extra buck, by taking surveys, because a lot of these surveys do incentivize people. All right. Yeah, I did want to see this is what I really think he's doing here. And let's pull up his thing. I don't think attacking you have to be careful with the attack on Florida. Crap, I got to take a break. But you have to be careful with the attack on Florida that Trump's waging. So far, it doesn't seem to be making a dent at all. But it is, I know what he's trying to do. He's trying to make DeSantis look like an absentee governor while Florida has real problems that needs to be addressed. I can also tell you, Stubbe really he served in the Florida House and Senate, and he's pretty damn upset that, there's this legislative agenda that's not being attended to. But, there's a fine line between that, and Trump could step in it with that. That being said, what people think is going to happen from that line of attack is ridiculous. And it sounds to me, from the conversation I had on Saturday with a couple of people, it sounds to me they're just grasping for straws and they're really looking for this big thing that's going to change. But everything to them is that change. We need this guy to endorse us. And if only this guy endorses us, it's going to be huge. Okay, that's going to be a deal breaker. It's going to change everything. You see Trump's attack on Florida? Oh, man, they're not going to like that. This is going to change the whole trajectory of the race. No, it's not. Rush Limbaugh was right. Only Trump can do Trump in. And you have to retool your entire thinking because you're doing more damage to yourself than anything. The paid influencer move was stupid. These people are nasty. They're pissing everybody off. The personal attacks they're going to make enemies. They burn bridges. They're never going to be able to cross again. They come across as nasty. And to the average person who's looking at it, it's just like, why would I not go with Trump? You're supposed to be the alternative. If you're going to be nasty and attack people, I'll take the real thing. I don't want, I'll take the grade A beef instead of the McDonald's rat burger. So let's see. Yeah, let's take a real quick break. And when we come back, we'll talk more about this. But I just don't see it, folks. I don't see it. Now, there's a long way to go. But some of these missteps in modern politics, in modern Republican politics, some missteps you cannot come back from. And I think the 2022 primaries prove that. You step in it, you stepped in it, and that's it. It's over. You're not going to suddenly change the dynamic of a race because somebody with gravitas comes out and endorses you. You're not going to out-gravitas Donald Trump. His name is in gold. What the hell are you thinking? You have to well, I'm not even going to say it. No. All right. Let's take a real quick break. When we come back, we'll talk a lot more about this. All right. Among other things. I know there's stuff that right now, though, I want to talk about. It's 60 degrees here, but all weekend it was in the 80s. It was beautiful. I had kids' friends in the pool. It was nice. It was a nice spot. I had nice family time. However, I'm thinking I'm not spending enough time in the gym, and I'm not loving the way this is going. It's time to get back into it. And I tell you, I've tried all these different things, fruit and vegetables, definitely a major part of everybody's diet that you just don't get. But all of the other stuff we've tried is junk science. And that's what the doctors called it. Many of these fruit and vegetables supplements that we've tried in the past, both Laura and I. Junk science because they use extracts of common produce department fruits and vegetables with few health benefits. Now I take Field of Greens because it's the whole organic fruit and vegetable, not a watered down supplement. And it's backed by a better health promise. Each ingredient in Field of Greens, which I've read, was scientifically chosen to support vital organs like your heart, lungs, and kidney health. Others support my immune system, blood pressure, metabolism, and healthy weight loss. Summer is a coming. I don't eat as healthy as I should. Who of us does? That's why I take Field of Greens. Like me, you'll probably look and feel healthier fast, and you're going to have way more energy. But your best proof will be at your next checkup when your doctor says, whatever you're doing, it's working, so keep it up. Let me get you started today with 15% off. Fieldofgreens.com and use the promo code TPP. Again, that's promo code TPP, fieldofgreens.com. And again, little People's Pundit thing here. You will feel healthier. You will get more energy. But the bottom line is, go past the 2-week mark, the 3-week mark, the 4-week mark. You're going to start to see different benefits. For everyone's obviously different, but my hair feels softer. My skin is clearer. I kid you not. They told me that would happen. It did. I hope it does for you as well. Definitely send us your experience. We love to hear them. We love to get feedback from you guys, not just on Field of Greens, but everything. All right. Just, as always, different. Tell us, what ones do you like better? Did you like the berry one? Did you like the regular? Maybe you just throw it in a body armor, right? And before we get on to the next one here, I got to tell you about this great deal from the guys at Jammin Bean. First of all, company owned by a bunch of Patriots who also happen to be absolute artists in the art of coffee making. All right. If you start, I don't know how long it's going to last. If you start a new subscription, use the promo code TPP40 for the People's Pundit 40 at checkout. You're going to get 40% off that initial subscription and still get the People's Pundit 10% discount on every monthly renewal. All right. Again, it's jamminbean.com, promo code TPP40. They got something for everybody. If you're like me and you like the roasted bean and you want to grind it yourself and you want to brew it yourself, whether it's in a French press or however you do it, but sometimes you're also busy and you don't have time for that. So you need a K-Pod. You throw the K-Cup in and you're on your way. You go out to work, do what you got to do. They got something for everybody. So again, jamminbean.com, promo code TPP40. You'll get 40% off on the initial and still get the 10% off at your subsequent renewals. All right. All right. Let's move on. Oh, and of course, keep the feedback coming from Jammin Bean. We love it. I told you. Popcorn's to die for. I keep eating all our displays. It's the way it is. All right, let's get back to 133. How much time? Kimmy, the moment at the pizza place. I mean, my God, this is what I'm talking about. I was going to bring up the comment he made, but let's compare and contrast. Okay, let's do that. Oops, I'm totally in the wrong place. For those who didn't see it, but I'm sure this is the thing. Most people have seen it, right? I mean, how many people are going to see Ron DeSantis' trip to Japan? It's like very much the old way of doing things. And I get what they're trying to do. But the Washington Post, correctly, I know, lamented that the real difference here, what's going on here, is the difference between personalities and personal touch. It's why DeSantis lost most of his own state's congressional delegation. It's a personal touch that Trump has that DeSantis doesn't. And the Washington Post article was bringing it up when basically they were shadowing both campaigns, and we're just going to call them what they are because DeSantis is running a campaign. All right. They basically were shadowing DeSantis' trip to Iowa, where he was trying to woo over farmers and take them away from Trump. And then Trump had also been to Iowa, but he went to Ohio. You remember the McDonald's thing. So there's that. The problem, and we actually spoke to one of these farmers, they had basically said in a nutshell that Trump came back. They were thinking about, going to DeSantis, but that Trump's return reminded them what the difference was. And many of them did find DeSantis to be awkward. And also Trump's record. Remember the tariffs? So they're concerned when you're backed by the Club for Growth. That is anti-tariff. All right. You're not willing to do what is necessary to protect the farmers. And when you're this like free trader, look, guys, that's why George W. Bush could barely carry Iowa. He lost it the first time. That's why Mitt Romney got crushed there. John McCain, 12-point ass kicking. And yet Trump comes in and carries it by 10 points. It's a different kind of republicanism, and it's appealing to these people. Yeah, they're tired of some of the shenanigans with Trump. They were sick of it. But ultimately, that trip reminded them why it is they voted for Trump and supported him in the first place, and why they're not going to change and go back. They're going to stick with Trump. Trump offers half-eaten pizza, it says, to the voters at the place. He did do that. He took a bite and he was like, does anybody want the piece I bit? I mean, that's textbook Trump. And the media thinks it's ridiculous and it's a joke. Whereas Trump, people love it. Let me just show you guys what they're talking about. We'll play this. Compare it again to Ron DeSantis's very weird and awkward moments, which is what it is. He's weird. He's not personal touch. I was supposed to do a shortened show today, but my God, time moves so quick. All right, let's add it. All right, let's go ahead and play it. I thought there was another one. Frankly, I thought I had a longer one, but here's what everyone is talking about.
Anybody want a piece of ID? Oh, wait.
And listen, this is another big deal. So he's in there hanging out, offering people, look at Byron Donalds, right? He's offering people, this slice of pie, does anybody want a piece I've eaten? And the funny thing is about it, I mean, the people take issue with it, but you know what people really care about? He folded the pizza and he crushed that puppy like a respectable New Yorker, And it's so different than like John Kasich, who sat down, ate it with a fork. And guess what? Ron DeSantis ate a piece of pizza with his fork. I could not believe it. I was just like, who told this guy to eat a piece of pizza with his fork? Like, what is... Fork and knives are not pizza, folks. They are not pizza. All right. You don't use them. Use your hand. You get filthy. And that's the way you do it. My God. There is one more clip I want to show you because I think it's important. I don't know if he did it on his personal one. It looks like he did. There are two clips, I guess, at the end of the day. But there is one's a CNN one. I really wanted the CNN one. Hold on. Bear with me. That's the Fox News, and that's fine. But Byron Donalds sits down with CNN, and there's Newsmax. That's a good one too. But he sat there and defended his support for Trump over DeSantis, and it's gold because it's CNN. Like Fox is fine and everything, but it doesn't really get to the heart of it. But here's one. Ooh, here it is. Here it is. I think this is it. And if I'm wrong, bear with me. I'll find it. But I think this is the one. And it doesn't say it, but I think this is it. And this is a problem that anyone who's not Trump is going to have. And just being honest. You can be honest and not, and still support your candidate. He is a little feminine, a little bit. And that's why, like, the behavior coaching. And Evan, I love your question. Is there any way for Trump in 24 to improve in counties like Gwinnett, Cobb, and Fulton? I think he is going to. I do. And then the bottom line is the answer to that, Evan, is real simple. Republicans should not be fighting each other right now. Republicans should be building a get out the vote, vote by mail infrastructure. And they're not doing it. They're too busy fighting because the Club for Growth and because Jeff Rowe wants to have a consultant position in the future of the Republican Party. If Trump wins this war, then nobody is going to hire these consultants. People from Trump world don't hire them. So they're constantly primarying and primarying and primarying, and they needed a horse in this race because they want to be special. They want to be a part of it. They want the money. So they convinced this guy to run for president. Let's just get real with this. There are these consultants and these political figures, and by the way, Twitter influencers, social media influencers, who have basically been expelled from Trump's orbit. And they needed a horse if they wanted to remain relevant, if they wanted to sell their books. That's what's not everywhere. That's why I had Kurt Schlichter on, because I don't believe that's everybody. And I think Kurt deserves more respect than he's getting. I mean, there are people who are attacking her. I've known Kurt for years. He is not one of those guys. He legitimately believes that, competition is probably a good thing. It doesn't matter if DeSantis loses. He's going to vote for Trump anyway. I don't want to see Kurt lumped into that group with these swindlers because they are. That is what they are. He's not one of them. All right. That's why I had him on. I'm telling you, I've known the guy for years. He's being honest with you when he says, look, electability is more important to me. He may be wrong, but he believes it. He earnestly believes it. All right. Here, let's rock out with Byron Donalds. And there is one more I want to show you, but let's do this one.
American people want an economy where inflation isn't crushing their pocketbooks. Wages are actually up. But the problem is wages adjusted for inflation are down. Everybody's falling behind. Black families have fallen behind under Joe Biden. Under Donald Trump, Black families were actually making more money, building more wealth, had more economic opportunity. That has all eroded under Joe Biden and is getting worse. Seniors on fixed incomes, they're falling behind. The very people, Jamal, that you want to help, they're falling behind under your president. They're not the same group of Americans than they were in 2018. And we all get the pandemic. It was awful, and we've now moved past that. But we got to get back to sound economic principle that works for everybody. And what Joe Biden and the Democrats are offering doesn't work. And the people you listed, they all support these same economic policies, or worse. That's not going to be helpful for the future of America.
Ooh, man, that guy's sharp. He's sharp as hell, isn't he? Watch out. I cut myself. He's sharp, man. That guy's got a future. He keeps it up. I'll tell you. He's got a future. Before I show you the next clip, I want to get to something, Byron, you said. What do the polls look like for Mark Robinson in Carolina for governor? This is a question we need to have. I think it's very clear looking at the results of the polling from social media and what you guys want to see, and we'll look at it. I think it's very clear people are more interested in state polls. We got to continue with the national polls too. It's just a question of whether or not we want to expend, money on state polls now as well. I think you guys very clearly said, it was close in some of Getter and Truth. It was a little bit closer, but still state polls got more votes than anybody else. On Twitter, which was the biggest response, Twitter was very clear. I mean, it was almost 70% state polls. So was locals, by the way. So why am I bringing this up, Byron? Because now the question is, what states do you want to poll? Iowa, funny. It's a caucus state. It's a funny state. And I'm kind of telling you anyway, as of now, and things can change, it's politics, but as of now, I don't see how anybody beats Trump in Iowa. His support with evangelicals is enormous. Locals, you know what I'm talking about. He is way ahead of Ron DeSantis when it comes to support among evangelicals. Iowa, the caucus, has been dominated by a single issue for almost 4 decades, and that was Roe v. Wade. And yeah, there were always other issues. Trump even made it about other issues in 2016 when he lost it to Ted Cruz, barely, because Ted Cruz pulled a stunt and a trick. It was a dirty trick that Ben Carson dropped out, and Ben Carson was encouraging all of his supporters to caucus for Ted Cruz. That was a lie. It was a dirty trick, but it did. Even Karl Rove admitted that my math was right. It did get him the Iowa caucus. And Trump would have beat him. He would have carried Iowa and New Hampshire, would have become the first nominee to do that as a non-incumbent. All right. I just don't know how you're going to beat Trump in Iowa when it comes to what we were just talking about with the farmers. Club for Growth is not going to beat Donald Trump in Iowa. So the tariffs, guys. I ended Roe v. Wade. Once we get down to the campaigning and the issues, because Iowans do care about issues, coupled with what RFK was saying, which is that these people are not going to vote for you, no matter what they tell a pollster, if they haven't shaken your hand and looked you in the eye and grilled you like 5 times. +1. Ron is not going to do well in this environment. He's not. And then moving on to New Hampshire, I just don't see it. So, I mean, New Hampshire is probably a good state to poll at this point. South Carolina, North Carolina, Florida was the one I was thinking of releasing first. But I do see the governor's race there with Robinson in North Carolina. And so when we go into these states and poll some of these states, that's when we're going to be asking questions like that. All right. So I am curious about North Carolina myself. So we'll see. But maybe I'll put together a survey and ask you, okay, I'll repeat whether or not you guys are more interested in national or state polls. And then also what states, and we'll just list them. Which state do you want to see us poll for primaries and caucuses? And winner chicken dinner is probably going to get it first, whoever wins. And we'll do that this week because it's Monday. And then I'm telling you, in Florida, which we just polled for somebody, Trump is most definitely ahead. And I didn't see any change over the weekend. So I'm thinking of asking him, can I release that? But if I can, I can't, but, Iowa, I just don't see it. I don't. Although Iowa's fun to poll because we're going to go back to how we did it in 15 and 16, which is for true caucus states. I mean, you go in. That's why there are entrance polls in Iowa. There's no exit polls. There are entrance polls because you go in with a preference, but then you have to ask voters whether or not they could change their mind. Are they persuadable? Because the caucus is about it's about advocacy. You're going to advocate for your candidate. And how many minds can you change? And that's where it gets real tricky with polling Iowa. That's why so many people really bite the bullet. And they wind up beating Crow in Iowa all the time. So that would be interesting. But, I think North Carolina is a good one. It's indicative. Florida, I mean, if he can't carry Florida, he's going to end his career if he loses Florida to Trump. It's over. It's done. Not only will he lose his career, but he will lose his political clout as governor. I mean, he'll be a lame duck. It'd be it actually is if they don't change the law for him, which Stupid thinks they're going to. So, this is a good, there are people like this. Adam, thanks for the super chat. I got mailed a nice packet about DeSantis. I live in Iowa. My wife thinks he's running and not sure how Trump will do in the general. I'll tell you right now, Adam, you tell your wife I said this. I am not at all convinced DeSantis can even win the state of Iowa. I'm not. Iowa, look at how it swung back in 18. Look at how it swung Democratic on the fly in 18. Just because a state, and by the way, Trump had help in 2022. Just because a state, although Grassley does the full 99, I was never worried about him. But just because a state votes for one guy like that does not mean, look, they voted for Obama by 12 points and then by 6. I mean, he won re-election. It was less, but they still carried it pretty consistently. Iowa has the largest number of pivot counties in the entire country, 31. Trump carried and held every single one of them. Republicans were losing them left and right in the midterms. They were losing counties they should not have lost in with overlapping congressional districts. Even Grassley did not perform as well as some people thought he did, or well as like Terry Branstad used to do. It's problematic. And again, Iowa voted to the left of Ohio all the time. I think Ohio would go back to being pretty damn close. Maybe I think DeSantis he's going to carry Ohio. I think so. Absolutely. But again, you can't, it doesn't matter because you need Ohio, you need Florida. He'll probably get them. Ohio, I think, is becoming more Republican because of Trump. But there are very clearly still some people who are like, look at how badly Jim Renacci did there against Sherrod Brown. Terrible. Mike DeWine barely won his first. I mean, it was what, 5 points, 3.5, 5 points, something like that. Even though the poll showed Richard Cordray was going to win. My point is, we confuse these states with being red states. They're not red states. Ohio's getting obviously more red than Iowa, but I think you do the wrong thing and Iowa's gone. I really believe that. And forget about the rest of them. I just don't think you can't win Wisconsin. Locals, you know what the dive we did with evangelicals. So Trump's in the 70s with evangelicals. Ron's at 60. Nikki Haley's in the 50s. It's not like Bush. And that was fine for 04, even though he lost it. That was fine for 04. It's not fine for now. You cannot do that. You need to do two things. One, you have got to be in the 70s. And two, you've got to increase the share of evangelical vote. It cannot be 18%, 15%, even 20%. You need a quarter to a third. They need to come out in full vigor. That's why Wisconsin is close with Trump and nobody else. All right. I'm Kimmy. I'm with you. I think he'll carry Ohio, but it is not going to be 8 points. He's not even a J.D. Vance Republican. And J.D. Vance won it by what? 6, 6.5, 7, something like that. By the way, basically identical to what our poll showed. You're not going to do that. Vance is an America first, 100%. People know where he stands on Ukraine. People know where he stands on trade. People know where he stands on all these issues. He is firmly in Trump's camp. He's, by the way, endorsed Donald Trump. He did he said he always did. I'm telling you, it's not going to happen. Yeah, but Evan, Cincinnati, Columbus, Cleveland make Ohio bluish. The rest of the state is deep red, I think is what you meant to say. But if you look at, Mahoning and places like that, non-Trump-like candidates in Ohio do not do that well. In Northeast and in the Southeast. And that's the ancestral Democrat that Trump won over. Mitt Romney did not do well with. Even Mike DeWine, he didn't do that great. And he did in his reelection because it's a reelection of a governor. Again, not very predictive. But Jim did not do well there. He lost it to Sherrod Brown. It was horrible to watch it. So, yeah. Evan, if Bernie Moreno is the nominee, which I think, listen, I'm just going to tell you right now. Bernie decided he wasn't going to run because of Vance. And they were both America firsters. And he did a very rare thing, which was, you know what? I think JD's got this wrapped up. I'm going to advocate that he probably should get the president's endorsement and that he's the one who can, he's the one who is where Ohio is, which is Trumplican, not Republican, Trumplican. And I'm going to step aside. Well, now he's in. And I can tell you right now, I believe Vance is going to win in a landslide next time, Russ. Yes, because there were voters, Russ, that we spoke with. They weren't really sure, and they knew who Tim Ryan was, so they went with Ryan this time. But they could have voted either way. This time, Vance is going to rock it. You watch, double digits, rock it next time. But getting back to what, Evan, is Brown done? If it's Bernie, he's done. Bernie Moreno will crush Sherrod Brown, I don't see why it wouldn't be, because I already know he's going to get the two most important endorsements in Ohio. And you already know that's coming, or at least, it's supposed to be. Yeah, JD has been exactly what he told voters he would be. And in Ohio, that's what matters. And it's been Trump again. He's been the guy's MAGA all day. Ohio is a MAGA red state. It's not a Republican state. You nominate Mitt Romney, you'll probably lose Ohio. You nominate someone who voters view to be Mitt Romney, you're probably going to lose Ohio. A technocrat, a plutocrat. That's why, again, this personality thing does matter. The attitude, this attitudinal appeal that Trump brought to the Rust Belt, it does matter. So many people who support DeSantis and then cite this Florida win They don't understand the historical significance of Trump carrying those states by the margins he did, making Wisconsin close both times, winning him one time, winning them both times. Look at Michigan. Tudor Dixon and Republicans up and down the ballot got crushed in Trump country in Michigan. Crushed in Macomb County. She didn't do any better in Holly. She didn't do any better in Oakland, neighboring Oakland. Like all of this stuff where, oh yeah, softer image is going to do better. No, it doesn't. She did worse. Way worse. She didn't have the money, that's true. But truth be told, Trump didn't spend a ton of money in these states. He really didn't. So it's attitudinal. And I think, Jay, actually, if this kicks off, this is Vance will wind up taking what could be Ron DeSantis's second chair seat, meaning the heir apparent to MAGA. If this keeps up, DeSantis loses, especially if Trump goes on to win in the general. It's Vance. You're not going to see the end of Kerry Lake either. I'll tell you that right now. All right, so he's going to blow this opportunity. I mean, I just don't think an introvert like Ron DeSantis will ever gain traction. I don't see it. He completely relies on others talking about him. Road trip, nailed it. Nailed it. You may personally like him. You've met him. You've talked with him. I'm just trying to speak to some people I've recently spoke with. I'm speaking to their concerns here, but that's not what wins elections. All right. Don't point Florida's re-election to me. Jeb Bush also won overwhelmingly in a re-election. Okay. Marco Rubio also won overwhelmingly. Bill Nelson used to win overwhelmingly. It doesn't mean shit. Especially governor elections. Gubernatorial elections have no predictive value. None. Right? Do you think Scott Walker would have been able to carry Wisconsin in a presidential election because he won Wisconsin, as a governor, as a gubernatorial candidate? Significantly unclear. All right. So where are we at here? So yeah, let's actually look real quick while we can. Let's look at the results of the poll. I know it was going to go somewhere else, but we're running out of time. So, all right, here we go. Ooh, it did get much closer in Truth. So on Truth, we got, and here I'll show you so you know I'm not lying to you. All right. Oh, let me pull up Twitter too while I'm at it. You go Truth, Twitter. Where is Locals? We got Locals. We got to get that one up. And Getter, because we did this everywhere. I was thinking, frankly, of condensing them to show you what the results were for everybody, but where are you? Where are you? Getter poll. Getter was less, but you know what? Truth has hundreds of votes now too, so maybe Getter went up. Great interview with Charlie Kirk if you missed it. Great interview with Charlie Kirk. And I'll be on, quite frankly, later today. Do not forget, I will be on, quite frankly, tonight, 7 o'clock, I believe it starts. I'll be on shortly after, but Frank is always entertaining. You should join right up. Whoa, big audience on Getter we're having right now. Excellent, Getter. You showed up. You showed the F up today. Let's okay, here we go. Ooh, Getter's close too now. Whoa. Okay, so first and foremost, let me find Twitter. Wow, I can't believe how close. I wonder if Twitter got any closer. I doubt Locals did because... Come on, poll. Where are you? Mike Davis has been killing it, hasn't he? Everything Mike Davis said came to fruition. Every time Jim Jordan takes Mike Davis's advice, he wins. Mike Davis is killing it. Article 3 project. All right, here we go. Here's on Twitter. This one is still significantly in favor of state polls, even though that's down a little bit. 66.9% after 3,235 votes. 23.1% said national polls, and 10% said they were unsure. So overwhelmingly, state polls wins it, takes it. on Twitter. Now, just by sheer Twitter, numbers, if I combine all these, which I want to see where we're at, then state polls is obviously still going to win because national didn't lead anywhere. And here's locals, by the way. Let's get locals up. It's getting up right now. Let's move that. Stop that. Get another. I hate how they have to do this. All right, so here we go. Is that the local one, or did I screw up and not get the right one for locals? Come on, man. Come on. I thought it was going to allow me to get. There we go. It doesn't matter. You're going to see it right here anyway. So, yeah, no screen sharing was canceled. So here's locals. Bam. Did you guys see the Twitter one, or did I not put it up on the screen? 70.3% state polls, 18.9% said national polls, 10.7% said unsure. So very close to Twitter's results, with 317 people replying, much less, only about 10% the sample size for Twitter. But again, very, very close to the actual margin. Here's Getter. Getter tightened up quite a bit. All right. After 309 voted, also about 10% the sample size of Twitter, a little less actually. National polls got 45.95. It got so close they had a second up on the digits. Richard Barris's son is on this. And thanks for the $10, Richard Barris's son. Listen, and he said, can you elaborate on the DeSantis paid influencer scheme? Is this confirmed? It would make sense, though, because everywhere I go on Twitter, people are 24/7 shilling for Ron, complete heel turns. I can tell you this, Rich Barris' son, that basically, and that is not my son, by the way. Better not be. Better be in school, let alone giving me $10. But yeah, I can tell you I had somebody personally tell me yesterday they wanted me to know and understand that even though they weren't supporting Trump and haven't decided whether they'll support DeSantis or not, that they will in no way be one of those paid influencers. So he acknowledged he has been spending a lot of time with them. He had acknowledged that that is absolutely happening. I can tell you too that one of them, who had a certain podcast that was super pro-Trump, got his financing largely from a single South Florida donor, and that guy at the time absolutely loved Trump. Now he is on the DeSantis train, and lo and behold, this podcast host is now DeSantis and anti-Trump, and says some of the dumbest things I have ever heard. Man, it's like what I said, that some of the influencer model is just not working. It was not smart. But yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, there's some of them are getting paid. Absolutely. I think some of the ones that you probably know, have decent names. They're definitely getting paid, people. So did Tucker leave, or was he fired? Well, I've been on. I haven't had a chance to look at it. I don't know if you guys have been looking it up. Steph A, you got it. So very close. This got so close they needed to go to another decimal over. 48.22% state polls, 45.95% national polls, 8.3% unsure. All right, so who are we missing? Truth, right? Yes, we're missing Truth. Very close on Getter as well as it was with Truth. On the rest of them, state polls won it and won it handily. Somebody even obviously look at what somebody put just immediately after this poll. But this one got pretty close too, after 317 people took it, which I find funny because I have more followers on Getter than I do on Truth, yet Truth's interactions sometimes are much higher. National polls came in at 42, state polls 46, unsure 11%. So big deal. Woo! And the producer's gone too, Kimmy. Yep, that's what it sounded like when I tried to, figure out what in the hell was going on. Going about normal business. Hey, would you be interested in this? Kind of thing. And boom, just like that. It was just like, we're not there anymore. What? I mean, it was totally by surprise for us. So man, it's already 2:04. With that, we're going to have to bounce. 7:00 Eastern Daylight Time. I'm going to get that down eventually. Don't forget, quite frankly, all right, it's going to be fun. I'll tweet it out. I'll put it on Locals. I'll put it on Getter. I'll put it on Truth. Or I'll retweet Frank. I love having our weekly conversations. We have a ton of material to cover tonight. It's going to be a good one. All right. So don't miss it. And for the rest of everybody, thank you, of course, for supporting our sponsors. And thank you to the sponsors for supporting us. That's how it works. It's a symbiotic relationship, and we can grow and we can grow. I'm going to put together a little survey. What do you want us to do? Do you want us to do Iowa, New Hampshire, North Carolina, South Carolina, North Carolina, Florida, Georgia, Arizona? I'll probably just put up every state and then see what you guys think. All right. Maybe even with a calendar. I don't know. But it'll be online. You'll be able to take it online through Survey Gizmo or Alchemer. Sorry. It's Alchemer now. And we'll decide what one we're going to go to. If there is another race in that state, then we'll look at it. Somebody had asked whether or not I thought Texas could be competitive at the Senate level. It will be. John Cornyn is going to be primaried. It looks like Ken Paxton is honestly going to run for something else. I could be things can change, but Chip Roy is going to primary John Cornyn. So you tell me whether or not you think replacing a neocon with a Club for Growther is really going to make much of a difference. I don't know. But yeah, don't miss Frank's show tonight. All right. Support the Public Polling Project. Share the link far and wide. It's in the description everywhere except for Locals, but you guys know where to find it. All right. That's how, the more people we get to sign up to contribute to the Public Polling Project, the bigger the base, the less we need to rely on people for as much, right? So if we had 20,000 contributors as opposed to 5,000, obviously it means that 20,000 can give a lot less than 5,000 would have to make the mark. We didn't come anywhere near the mark last time when we did the national. I pulled the trigger on it anyway. We needed a public poll because I saw what was happening privately for work for clients, and we needed a public poll. And we were way ahead, as usual, of the trend, and like to see what it is going forward. All right. With that in mind, that's it. Deuces. We'll see you Wednesday, noon Eastern Standard Time, but I better see some of you tonight on Frank's show. All right. All the best, folks. See you soon.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be. I know you got a man, but you don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna